Hey Playas, how you doing? Welcome back to Playas Guide. This episode of Playas Guide, I'm going to be discussing what you should be looking at collecting in 2020 and what the forefront of video game collecting may very well look like. So, stay tuned for my predictions. Okay, let's start things off here with Nintendo. We'll start from the big NES and work our way up to the Wii U. So, for the NES, I think that prices have kind of stabilized what we've seen already in terms of loose cart collecting. Now, there are a lot of new collectors looking for high-end, sealed, and very good condition, mint condition CIB games that have recently entered the market. It looks as though a lot of them are looking to buy these games as an investment and hold on to them in the long term to hopefully be able to get some type of return on them. And they are spending a fortune on these games. I don't normally believe in the bubble theory. I didn't before, but prices are blowing up pretty big that it could be creating a bubble. And if this trend continues over the next 2 or 3 years, I can't see it sustaining itself because there just aren't enough people in the market for those higher end sealed games and CIBs. That being said, collecting for NES is still not a bad time to do it. Prices could go up a tiny bit on some of the loose cart, but generally the loose cart price affects the CIB and sealed games more than a sealed game would affect a loose cart. So I wouldn't worry too much about it as a loose cart collector. As a sealed collector, expect things to get expensive in 2020. Moving on to the Super Nintendo. 2020 is going to be a good time for Super Nintendo collectors because it's kind of going to hit that plateau area that NES hit 2 years ago where things cooled off, they mellowed out, the expensive games are still going to be pricey, they might go down a bit, but if you're just collecting in general, you're not going to see too many, price jumps or price hikes. Things are going to be pretty moderate. The N64, on the other hand, I think is going to be getting pretty close to its peak now because of the generation of gamers and collectors looking for N64 games. 2020 might be the peak for N64, if not the following year. One of the reasons why it's not going to peak as long is because a lot of completionists are going to be able to complete this set fairly easy. There's not as many rare titles, and it's a fairly small library, so, prices aren't going to go as crazy as the NES or SNES. Gamecube. Gamecube is the one that is really going to get some momentum and people are going to notice in 2020. For the most part, I think anyone collecting Gamecube is going for a complete game with the case and the manual. There's not too many loose disc collectors out there. I, for one, certainly don't want to have loose discs laying around, especially for an expensive game that could get easily damaged. Now is the time that we're going to see the value of GameCube games really start ramping up. The Wii. So the Wii, I think a lot of the games are going to remain dirt cheap. I think even some of the first party games, the popular games like Mario Kart or Donkey Kong Country Returns, I don't think those games are going to go up yet. They might even go down. What we will see an increase in terms of price for collecting for the Wii is going to be some of the rare games. I made a video on collecting for the Wii which discusses some of these rare and uncommon and desirable games. Those are the ones that I think will go up. So if you're looking to collect for the Wii or just want to get some uncommon or rare games for the console for your collection, start getting them now. I think within the next year or two, a lot more people are going to be going after those games. The Wii U. I love the Wii U. It's a great console, and now is the absolute best time to collect for it. It hasn't hit like rock bottom yet in terms of value. Next year, I don't know about the following year because I think a lot of people are going to be collecting for the Wii U. Small library, a lot of great games on it. Not as much shovelware as we've seen on other consoles like the Wii. So it's a really good one to collect for. I don't know how low the prices of these games are going to go or how cheap they will, but over the next year, as a lot of people are moving on to the Switch if they don't already have it, getting rid of their Wii U, and stores are starting to liquidate out their Wii U stuff. Used stores like GameStop and EB Games I'm talking about, not, Walmart or whatever. If Walmart still has some Wii U stuff, they're going to want to get rid of that too. But I'm just saying, we're going to see a push to kind of get that out the door, and you're going to see more Wii U stuff in your mom and pa game stores. All right, let's talk about Sega. And this is going to be a little bit generalized. I think the rare Sega stuff is going to remain rare and sought after and will slowly go up in value over the next year. There's not going to be anything significant happening on the Sega front. I think Sega has always been looked over a little bit, whereas Nintendo's been more at the forefront of video game collecting. But that's not to say that the popular or sought-after Sega titles won't hold their value. In fact, I think that those are the only ones that might go up in value a little bit over the next year. Otherwise, I think Sega's a pretty safe front to collect for because of how underrated it is. And I think you can find some good deals still for Sega games, including the Genesis and the very underrated Master System, which is a smaller library if you're looking for a complete set. Okay, next up is Microsoft. Now, collecting for the Xbox. I think people are going to really start to take notice as to what games are rare and uncommon on the Xbox. The Xbox has been in the value bins. It's been underrated for a long time now in terms of collectability. So, I think we're going to start to see some pricier games emerge from the original Xbox library. The 360, on the other hand, stores like EB Games are not going to be taking them in anymore. GameStop, I think, kind of takes everything, but the trade-in value on 360 stuff, unless it is something that, is uncommon and desirable, it's nothing. It's so low, it's not even really worth trading it in. People are beginning to throw some of these games out, from what I've heard, just because there's such an abundance of them, and they're viewed as worthless right now. And there was a time in the late 90s and early 2000s, very early 2000s, where Nintendo stuff like NES games were really kind of viewed in a similar light. So from now and going into 2020, you're going to want to look at collecting for the 360. There are tons of great games, and there are going to be some rare and uncommon ones. Now, we don't know what all of those games are. There's a lot of speculation at this time because it's so early on in collecting. It's really hard to say. But if you're really in tune with the Xbox 360 and what's going on in that scene, that collecting scene, you're going to be able to get some really good deals right now. Okay, so for Sony, the PS1, I think that generation of gamers that grew up with that as their main console, I think they got some cash to spend on some of the classics and some of the rares. So I think that this console, PS1, is going to be hot in 2020, one of the hottest to collect for, and prices are going to continue to go up. So I'd say PS1 and GameCube are going to get really popular in 2020 to collect for. The other thing that I think is going to also really go up, because it's been in the value bins for a while, is PS2. I think it's going to start crawling out of those value bins and behind the counter of game stores for a lot of the popular or rare games, because we know what they are. I'm even planning on doing a video soon that covers that so that you guys know what to look for. While the PS2 may be gaining some momentum and collectability, the PS3 certainly is not. The Xbox 360, I think, will always be a little less desirable than the PS3, but the PS3 is right down there with the Xbox 360 now. I think a lot of these game stores won't be taking in as many of these games as they used to, and when you see that happen, the prices are going to drop. So check the value bins, see if any games stand out to you. Look at the library and see what's out there that's interesting or exclusive to the PS3, because those games are going to be a little bit harder to get in the future, and they're going to be really cheap in 2020. Something else to consider is the handheld market. I think the handheld market for the most part is going to go up a little bit because of how many great games there are on different handhelds that are getting unnoticed. And when people see where the prices are at of a lot of these other consoles, they're going to look at the handheld market. I also think, because that's pretty general. I don't want to get too much into handhelds, but I do think the Game Boy Advanced is one that will stand out. I'm not too sure about the original Game Boy at this point, but I don't think that any of those rare games are going to go down in value either. What I do think will go up a bit in 2020 is like mini arcades and other older oddities and different handhelds. I think that there might be a market for that with all the modern handhelds and mini arcades and things that are going on right now to appeal to retro gamers. I can definitely see some of those people, as well as people who are already into retro games, getting into it and looking for some of these items. I know like the Game & Watch stuff has really got some momentum over the past few years, and I don't think that's going to slow down. I think that people are going to take more notice to some of these different smaller, designated mini arcade style consoles. All right, players, thank you for tuning in and watching my predictions for game collecting in 2020. I know it's a little bit early in the year to be releasing this video, but the signs are there for what will most likely happen on the forefront of video game collecting next year. So, if you enjoyed this video, I got lots of other videos on game collecting. I also cover some different genres of games on this channel, and I stream weekly on Twitch every Friday night and on Mixer and YouTube, as well as you can catch the At Home Dad Gamer and D-Pad Danny, who also stream on the Playas Guide channel. So give us a follow, check it out, join the chat, and enjoy the rest of 2019. Later, players.